Act as if your account is already full, and it must overflow. The numbers you see now are not truth. They are shadows of an old belief. The moment you dare to walk in the end, the moment you spend from imagination and not from fear, the outer bank must yield to your inner wealth. Stay with me, and you will learn the inner act that multiplies wealth. Not tricks, not chance, not struggle, but the law. Assume the state of already having, and you must have. Tonight I will show you how to dwell in the end until it feels natural, how to speak the creative word with feeling, how to silence the voice of lack, and how to let the bank account itself testify that imagination creates reality. I know you have checked your account before with fear in your chest. I know you have felt the sting of numbers too small, bills too large, and the sinking thought, it will never change. You have begged, you have worked, you have worried, and still the balance mocked you. That is the lie of the senses. For the account is not cause, it is effect. The cause is always within. The speech you carry when no one listens, the secret feeling of I am broke, that is the seed, and the bank only echoes it. Tonight you will see why every empty balance was not a curse from without, but a message from within, calling you back to your creative power. In this lesson, I will lead you step by step into the state where your account is already full. I will show you how to act as though the wealth is here, how to live from the end, how to let naturalness replace strain. I will reveal the mistakes men make when they beg for more, when they stare at numbers in fear, when they confess lack with every word. And I will guide you into the silence where imagination declares, I am ultra rich, and the world must follow. By the end, you will not be hoping for deposits. You will know yourself to be the source of every deposit. And yet, even as we speak, I will not give everything at once, for hidden within this teaching is a practice so simple and so strange that most overlook it, a single imaginal act that, if done tonight, can change your tomorrow. Stay with me, and you will see. Here's something most people completely miss. The numbers in your bank account are not truth. They are not final, they are not fixed. They are not the cause of your condition. They are only the reflection of what you have assumed about yourself in the past. When you open the banking app, or when you stare at a slip of paper from the teller, you think you are seeing reality. But what you are seeing is imagination already crystallized, imagination already hardened into form. Those numbers are yesterday's thoughts made visible, the harvest of seeds you planted unconsciously with every word of lack, every sigh of fear, every careless declaration of I am broke. Now here is the part that seems almost impossible to believe. Those numbers can change, not by toil, not by panic, not by begging another dollar into existence, but by changing the state that you occupy within yourself. The outer balance is a shadow, and the shadow has no life of its own. The projector, the film, the true cause is always within. Imagine a movie on the screen. If the picture is dark, if the scene is ugly, would you stand before the screen with paint and brushes to fix it? No, you would change the reel. Yet that is what men do when they labor over numbers, worrying, fretting, scheming, never realizing the reel of assumption within them is playing the true story. The outer picture is helpless to resist. It must show what is impressed within. So let me set the stakes clearly. If you continue to treat numbers as cause, they will enslave you. You will live forever reacting to them, fearing them, obeying them. You will open your account with trembling and let it tell you who you are. But if you dare to reverse the order, if you dare to say, I am wealthy, I am secure, I am ultra rich, before a single digit changes, then the digits will change to mirror your decree. This is the law. The inner state produces the outer fact, never the other way around. I remember when I longed to visit my family in Barbados. Outwardly, the numbers mocked me. I had no money for a ticket. By every calculation, it was impossible. But my teacher Abdullah refused to let me bow to appearances. He said, you are already in Barbados. Walk as though you are there. And night after night I fell asleep in my father's house, feeling the warmth of the island air, hearing the voices, ignoring the cold streets of New York. I acted as if the journey was already behind me, and the world, obedient to the inner film, arranged the bridge of incidents until I sailed without paying a cent. The numbers lied. The inner state was the truth. So I ask you now, will you continue bowing to the lie of the numbers? Or will you claim your inner wealth and let the account mirror it back? The choice is always yours. The law does not fail. The only question is whether you dare to act as if it were already so. Transition. But if numbers are lies, what then is the true account? What is the real balance sheet that determines your wealth? That is what I will show you next. The inner bank, the storehouse of assumption, where every deposit and every withdrawal is made by the words I am. What I am about to share may seem strange at first, but if you let it sink in, it will change the way you think of money forever. You believe your bank is the institution that holds your fortune. You believe your balance is decided by digits on a screen, by salaries, by checks, by the movements of commerce. But the true bank, the only bank that matters, is within you. Your faith is your fortune. Every assumption you accept is a deposit. Every declaration of I am is a withdrawal or a credit. And the account you call reality is nothing but the ledger of your inner speech. Think about how faithfully you have kept accounts of lack. Each time you opened your mouth and said I am broke, you wrote a line in the ledger. Each time you sighed, I can't afford it, you stamped the record again. Each time you muttered, it's always the same for me, you deposited poverty into your inner account. And then, when you checked your outer balance, the numbers only confirmed what you had already declared. You thought the bank was telling you the truth. No, my friend, the bank was only echoing you. It was the mirror, not the master. But here is the glory. Just as you have unconsciously filled the account with lack, you can consciously flood it with wealth. Begin to deposit new assumptions. Say with conviction, I am wealthy, I am supplied, I am ultra-rich. Each time you say it and feel it, you are writing a new entry in the inner ledger. At first, the outer balance may lag, because it is only the shadow, but persist, and the shadow will catch up with the light. Persist, and the outer must obey the inner. For the world has no choice but to reflect the content of consciousness. This is why I say imagination is the only reality. What you assume is real will harden into fact. If you want to know the future of your bank account, listen not to the market, not to the news, not to the economy, but to your own inner speech. For it is the teller at the counter. It is the one recording every word. The world only delivers the statement at the end of the month, showing you in numbers what you have already been saying in secret. Do not underestimate the power of small deposits. One persistent assumption outweighs 100 fearful glances at your account. Every night as you drift into sleep, whisper within yourself, I am wealthy. Not I will be, not I hope to be, but I am. See the balance full. Feel the relief of bills paid. Hear the congratulations of friends. Smell the scent of newness that money brings. Deposit that scene into your inner bank, and the deposit deposits. Harvest cannot fail. So I ask you now, what is the balance of your inner account? Have you filled it with debts and deficits of doubt, or have you poured into it riches of assumption? The answer is written all over your life. But the good news is this: the bank is always open. Even now you can begin to write new entries. Even now you can declare yourself wealthy and let the inner ledger overflow. And when it does, the outer bank, powerless to resist, must echo it. Transition. But how exactly do we make these deposits? How do we move from idle words to living decrees? That is where the power of inner speech enters. Let us now look at the secret of speaking wealth into being. Here is the secret most men overlook, though it works through them every hour of the day: inner speech. The words you carry when no one hears, the dialogues you rehearse in silence, the quiet mutterings of your soul, these are the true decrees of destiny. Life does not respond to what you say aloud to impress the world. Life responds to what you whisper to yourself in the secret place. And your bank account, your bills, your circumstances are nothing but the outer echo of that inner conversation. If within yourself you constantly repeat, I am broke, I am behind, I never catch up, then the outer world, faithful and impartial, must arrange itself to prove you right. Opportunities will vanish, doors will close, and the numbers will confirm the poverty you have already declared. But if, even in the midst of want, you dare to say within, I am supplied, I am wealthy, I am ultra-rich, and you clothe those words with feeling, then the world must bend to that inner decree. The outer will rearrange itself, circumstances will shift, and wealth will appear not because the outer had power, but because the inner had spoken. This is why Scripture says, by your words you are justified, and by your words you are condemned. Words are not idle, words are seeds. Each I am carries within it the pattern of its own fulfillment. Say, I am poor, and poverty grows. Say, I am rich, and riches take root. The subconscious mind is the soil. It does not judge the seed, it only accepts what is planted. And the harvest is sure. Do you remember the experiment I once gave my students? I told them, tonight and every night for a week, as you drift into sleep, imagine yourself climbing a ladder. Feel your hands on the rungs. Feel your body lifting step by step. Do not tell anyone. Do not explain. Simply do it faithfully. And many wrote back astonished, saying, Neville, I found myself on ladders this week, fixing lamps, painting walls, climbing where I had no reason to climb. The outer world had obeyed the inner speech. So if a ladder can appear by simple repetition of an imaginal act, why do you doubt that wealth can appear by the same means? The ladder was a small proof, a shadow of the larger truth. Inner speech creates outer fact. If you persist in saying, I am wealthy, the same law must apply. The difference is not in the power, but in the persistence. You must speak until it feels real, until it takes root, until the subconscious accepts it. Then life itself must play the scene you have rehearsed. So begin now to change your conversation. Refuse to speak lack. Refuse to rehearse failure. Refuse to call yourself anything less than wealthy, favored, and supplied. Say, I am ultra-rich, until it echoes through you as naturally as your own name. And when it does, the bank will mirror it, for it cannot resist the decree of the inner word. Transition. But there is yet a higher practice, a way to make these words more than mere repetition, a way to live from the end as though it were already so. For saying the word is one thing, but dwelling in the state is another. Let us now step into the art of living from the end, where the wish fulfilled becomes your dwelling place. This next part changed everything for me, and if you grasp it now, it will change everything for you as well. For it is one thing to speak wealth, it is one thing to affirm, I am supplied, I am rich. But it is another thing entirely to live from the end, as though the state were already a fact. Most men live in a future tense. One day I will have, someday it will come, if only I can make it happen. And by placing wealth always ahead of them, they keep it always beyond reach. But the secret is not to think of the wish, but to think from it. Not to hope to be rich, but to dwell in the certainty, I am. Living from the end means to take your desire and treat it as memory instead of longing. You walk, you speak, you feel as though it has already happened. You put on the garment of the wish fulfilled and you refuse to remove it, no matter what the outer world shouts. If you would have a full account, then see it full in imagination and act as though it were so. Do not wait for numbers to give you permission. Walk through your day with the ease of one already supplied, with the confidence of one already secure, with the joy of one already enriched. The world will tell you you're pretending, but in truth you are prophesying, and the prophecy must fulfill itself. Consider a man who receives an inheritance promised but not yet deposited. He does not walk about in despair because the digits have not appeared. He knows it is his. He spends in confidence, he rests in certainty, because the promise has been made. So too with you. The promise is imagination. The inheritance is the state assumed. Once you have accepted it within, the outer must catch up. Why then would you live as a beggar when you are heir to all? Why speak as one lacking when you have already claimed supply? To live from the end is to walk as though you already have, to rest as though it were already accomplished, to breathe as though the air of wealth surrounds you now. When I longed to visit Barbados, I did not think, one day I will be there. I thought from the end. I walked the streets of New York, but inwardly I was in my father's house. I smelled the sea air. I felt the warmth of the island. I heard the voices of family welcoming me. I lived from the end. And though outer facts mocked me, the end hardened into fact. That is the law. So I tell you now, begin tonight. As you drift into sleep, feel what you would feel if your account were overflowing. Would you rest easier? Would you smile with relief? Would you breathe deeper, knowing the burden was gone? Let that be your final feeling as you close your eyes. Do not fall asleep to the numbers you see, but to the numbers you decree. Fall asleep from the end, and the world will deliver it. And as you walk through the day, hold yourself as one already rich. Do not mean reckless spending or foolish display that is outer noise. I mean inner posture. Walk upright, breathe calmly, speak confidently. The world may still show you yesterday's harvest, but you will not bow. You will remain in the end until it feels natural. And once it feels natural, manifestation is near. Transition. But here is where many falter. They begin to live from the end, and then the outer mocks them. Numbers remain the same, bills still arrive, facts still whisper against them. They wonder, did I fail? Did the law abandon me? Number, they are facing the great test of persistence. For to live in the end is to hold the state even when the outer denies it. And that persistence, that loyalty to the unseen, is the theme we now must explore. Here is a truth that will set you free if you dare to accept it. Faith is not willpower. Most people confuse the two, and in their confusion they wear themselves out. They strain and struggle, repeating affirmations with clenched fists, trying to force the world to change by the noise of their effort. They believe if they can just push hard enough, shout loud enough, repeat long enough, then maybe the outer will obey. But hear me. Willpower is the confession of doubt. To say, I will make myself believe, is to admit that you do not yet believe. To force is to deny. To struggle is to prove separation. The subconscious mind, which is the womb of creation, does not yield to effort, it yields to feeling. Faith is not a fight. Faith is a rest. It is the quiet assurance that the unseen is more real than the seen. The calm certainty that once you have assumed the state, the work is finished, the seed is planted, and the harvest is inevitable. Just as a farmer does not hover over his field in panic, digging up the seed to check if it has sprouted, so you must learn to rest once the assumption is made. Willpower digs up the seed and delays the harvest. Faith plants it, waters it with feeling, and leaves it to the silent work of the soil. Think of the child in his father's house. He does not pace the floor at night worrying, will there be bread in the morning? Will I have clothes tomorrow? He sleeps, he trusts, he accepts provision as natural. That is faith. And unless you become as little children, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven, for the kingdom is nothing but the state of fulfilled desire accepted as fact. The childlike heart does not strain. It rests, it knows. I remember a man who came to me weary from endless struggle. He had affirmed day and night, I am wealthy, yet his face betrayed exhaustion and fear. I asked him, how do you feel when you affirm? He confessed, I feel desperate, I feel anxious, I feel as though I am trying to convince myself of something untrue. And I said, there is your problem. You are forcing with willpower instead of resting in faith. Stop fighting the outer, enter the inner, feel the end as real, then rest. Let the words carry conviction, not strain. Let the feeling of fulfillment replace effort. You need not fight. You need only accept. He obeyed. And in a short time, his affairs changed. The strain vanished. The results flowed. So I tell you now, abandon the whip of willpower. Stop exhausting yourself with frantic effort. The law does not respond to noise but to knowing. Enter into the end, feel it real, and then rest in it. Let it be as natural as breathing. When the old fear whispers, do not fight it. Simply return again to the state with quiet certainty. Each return deepens the impression. Each return strengthens the root. And in the appointed hour, the harvest must come. Transition. But even when you rest in faith, doubts will rise. Old memories will return. The shadow of the former self will whisper, it will not work for you. How then do you meet these doubts? Not by fearing them, not by surrendering to them, but by learning to face them as shadows and refuse them life. Let us now look at the art of handling doubt and the old self. Now let us face the shadow that troubles so many. Doubt. For no sooner do you step into the end and dare to say, I am wealthy, I am secure, I am ultra rich, than the old self stirs from its grave. It whispers, remember your failures. Look at your bills. See how often you have tried and nothing came. And many, hearing that voice, imagine they have failed already, and so they turn back to the old ways of fear and struggle. But I tell you, doubt itself is no enemy. Doubt is only the echo of the old man, the fading voice of the state you once occupied. It has no life of its own unless you feed it. Think of doubt as a shadow cast on the wall. The shadow looks like substance, it looks like form, but if you turn on the light, you see it is nothing. So it is with the whisper, you will never have it. If you agree, you breathe life into the shadow. If you ignore it and turn again to your assumption, the shadow dissolves. Do not wrestle with it. Do not curse it, do not panic because it appears. Simply deny it authority. Return quietly to your end. Whisper again, I am wealthy, I am supplied, I am ultra rich. Each time you do, you starve the old self and feed the new. I once counseled a young man who longed for prosperity. He affirmed faithfully, yet every time he opened his account, fear shouted louder than his words. He came to me in despair, saying, Neville, my doubts are stronger than my faith. I told him, your doubts are not stronger. They are simply older. They have been rehearsed for years, while your new state is still young. Do not be dismayed. Every return to your assumption strengthens it. Every time you turn from doubt and declare the end, you are feeding the new man and starving the old. He persisted, and in time the old voice lost its grip. The new state became natural, and the outer world reflected it. So learn to meet doubt with calm indifference. Let it pass as a cloud passes before the Sunday. Do not make war with it. Do not confess it with panic. Simply return to your chosen end. And remember, stray thoughts do not kill a manifestation. Passing fears do not uproot a harvest. Only consent, only dwelling in the doubt, only rehearsing it in feeling can delay you. Refuse consent, and the doubt is powerless. This is the art of persistence, not straining against the old, but quietly refusing it life. You need not shout. You need not argue. You need only to say within, I am, and rest. Each return to the new state is victory. Each return is loyalty. And as you are faithful to it, the old self fades like a dream upon waking, leaving only the reality of your assumption. Transition. Yet if you would weaken the old self and strengthen the new more quickly, there is a further discipline, one that cannot be avoided. You must change not only what you feel in silence, but also what you feed upon all day long. You must go on what I call a mental diet, refusing every word and thought that denies your wealth. Here is the discipline that most neglect, and because they neglect it, their harvest is spoiled. It is the practice of the mental diet. For just as your body is sustained or weakened by the food you consume, so your world is shaped by the thoughts and words you entertain. You may plant the seed of wealth in the stillness of night, but if by day you flood your mind with fear, with gossip, with complaints, with the constant rehearsal of lack, you pour poison upon the soil. The subconscious is always recording, always receiving, and it accepts not only your deliberate affirmations, but every careless word you utter and every idle thought you consent to. If you would see your assumption hardened into fact, you must learn to feed only upon what agrees with your desire. Consider how lightly men use the most powerful instrument in existence, their own speech. They say, I am tired, I am broke, I am unlucky, without pause, without thought. They speak of debts as though they were eternal, of bills as though they were mountains, of poverty as though it were their identity, and then they wonder why their lives are filled with the very things they curse. Do you not see? Every word after I am is prophecy. Every phrase clothed in feeling is a decree. You cannot call yourself poor all day long and then expect your nightly affirmation of wealth to bear fruit. The weeds will choke the wheat. The diet of the day must agree with the seed of the night. So I say to you, guard your words as though they were jewels. Refuse to let any statement leave your lips that contradicts your assumption. When the thought arises, I can't afford this, replace it instantly with I am supplied. When the impulse comes to sigh, I never win, silence it and declare, I am favored. When others complain of lack, do not join them in their chorus. Turn inward and affirm, I am abundance. This is not pretending. This is refusing to use the name of God in vain. For every I am is the name, and every name is destiny. I once knew a man who lived for years in a constant state of lack. His speech was full of despair. He said daily, I never get ahead. I am cursed. Nothing works for me. And so his world confirmed it. I told him, from this day you must fast from such words. You must begin a strict mental diet. You must allow nothing to pass your lips that denies your wealth. He struggled at first, for the old self was strong, but he persisted. Each time he caught himself, he replaced the statement with its opposite. He refused gossip, refused self-pity, refused complaint. Within 6 months, his life transformed. Opportunities opened, debts dissolved, money flowed. His outer account had no choice but to echo the new language he spoke within. So if you would see wealth, feed only upon wealth. Refuse the poison of lack. Fast from complaint. Feast upon faith. Make your daily language the constant declaration of supply, of favor, of abundance. For the subconscious is listening always, and it does not judge. It simply records, and what it records, it produces. Transition. Yet even when you watch your words, there still remains the heavy weight of the past. Many are haunted by memories of failure, of debts, of empty accounts, of shame. They say, how can I believe in wealth when I remember so much lack? But here lies another gift of imagination, the power of revision. For the past is not stone but clay, and you may remold it until it shines. Now we come to one of the greatest gifts of imagination, and if you grasp it, it will free you from the tyranny of memory forever. It is the power of revision. For most men are bound hand and foot to their past. They say, I have always been poor, I have always failed, I have always come up short. They open their accounts and see not only today's numbers, but every disappointment of yesterday. And as they rehearse those scenes, as they relive those losses, they plant the same seed again and again, ensuring the same harvest tomorrow. But I tell you, the past is not stone, it is clay, it is not fixed, it is pliable. And with imagination, you may take the ugliest scene of lack and remold it until it shines with abundance. Revision is not pretending, it is creation. When you revisit a memory and change it in feeling, when you take the empty balance and imagine it full, when you take the rejection and imagine it as acceptance, when you take the failure and transform it into triumph, you are planting a new seed in the subconscious. And because the subconscious receives only what is felt, it accepts the revised scene as fact. From that moment forward, life begins to unfold from the new past instead of the old. The memory you choose becomes the seed of the future you live. I recall a woman who came to me grieving over a bitter quarrel with her husband. Each night she replayed it in her mind, fueling her anger, deepening her sorrow. I told her, do not repeat the scene as it was. Revise it. See it differently. Hear kind words instead of harsh ones. Feel reconciliation instead of rejection. She obeyed. She replayed the quarrel, but in imagination she saw her husband smiling, heard him speak with love, felt herself embraced. She persisted until the new scene felt more real than the old. And soon after, the outer world conformed. The quarrel was forgotten, affection returned, harmony restored. The past had been rewritten, and the future healed. So too with your finances. You may remember times when your account was empty, when your card was declined, when shame burned in your chest. Do not relive those moments as wounds. Revise them. See the account full. Hear the teller say, you have more than enough. Imagine the relief, the pride, the joy. Rewrite the memory until it feels natural. And know that the subconscious, which cannot distinguish between memory and imagination, has accepted the new scene as truth. From that moment, the world must begin to echo the wealth of the revised past. This is the mercy of imagination. It redeems not only tomorrow, but yesterday. It takes the scars of lack and transforms them into testimonies of abundance. And when you revise faithfully, when you refuse to let old wounds repeat, you free yourself from the prison of the past. You walk in a world where every memory supports your wealth and every recollection feeds your faith. So I say to you, tonight before you sleep, choose one memory of lack. It may be a bill unpaid, a purchase denied, a moment of shame. Do not weep over it. Revise it. Close your eyes and see it differently. Feel it differently. Live it differently in imagination. And as you drift into sleep, let the new scene be the last impression upon the subconscious. For what you plant in sleep, you shall reap in waking life. Transition. Yet even as you revise the past, you must also learn to rest in the present. For every seed has its appointed hour, and impatience is the greatest thief of faith. So let us now look at the mystery of timing, the law of the appointed hour, by which every desire ripens in its season. What I am about to tell you may be the very key that frees you from restlessness, from worry, from the constant digging up of the seed you have planted. It is this: every assumption has its appointed hour. The law is exact. The process is certain, and nothing is ever wasted. Once you have sown the seed of wealth in imagination, once you have clothed yourself in the feeling of a full account, the harvest is assured. But like every seed, it has a season. Some desires spring forth quickly, others unfold through a longer bridge of incidents. But whether short or long, the hour is fixed by the nature of the seed, and no amount of panic, no amount of impatience, no amount of willpower can hasten it. Think of the farmer. He plants his field with confidence. He does not dig up the soil each morning to see if the seed has sprouted. He does not stand in despair because the stalk is not yet visible. He trusts the silent process of growth. He waters, he waits, and he rests. So too must you with your assumption. The moment you say, I am wealthy, you have planted the seed. The moment you feel the relief of supply, the joy of abundance, the certainty of security, you have conceived the desire. From that instant, the process is underway, though the senses may see nothing. The roots are deepening, the stem is forming, the harvest is coming. But what do most men do? They plant and then uproot. They affirm in the night, I am supplied. But in the morning they stare at the account in fear and declare, it has not worked. They rush back to the soil and tear it apart, searching for signs. And by their impatience they weaken the growth. They do not trust the law. They do not honor the appointed hour. They want instant harvest, forgetting that all life moves in seasons. I once counseled a woman who longed for marriage. She affirmed faithfully. She felt herself loved. She imagined companionship each night. But when months passed and nothing appeared, she came to me in despair, saying, "Neville, I must have failed." I told her, "You have not failed. You have conceived. But like a child in the womb, your desire has its appointed hour. Do not call delay denial. Do not curse the unseen process. Persist in the end and trust the law." She obeyed. She stopped watching the calendar and began to rest in the certainty of fulfillment. In time, the man appeared. Love blossomed. Marriage came. The appointed hour had arrived, and it could not be denied. So I say to you, never confuse silence with failure. Never confuse waiting with abandonment. The law does not lie. The word you have spoken in feeling must come to pass. Do not watch the outer account as judge. Do not demand signs from the shadows. Trust the unseen growth. Rest in the end. Say within yourself, "It is done." The appointed hour will come. And when it does, it will feel so natural, so inevitable, that you will wonder why you ever doubted. Therefore, release the strain of timing. Cease demanding when and how. Those questions belong to the shadow, not to the cause. Your task is only to assume, to persist, to rest. The law's task is to bring forth at the appointed hour, and when it comes, it will not delay, it will not falter, it will not fail. Transition. And now, having seen how to plant and persist, having learned to revise the past and rest in the appointed hour, you may ask, but how does life itself arrange the way? By what means does my assumption move the outer world? That is what we shall uncover next. The mysterious bridge of incidents, the unfolding path by which your desire, once assumed, becomes fact. Now let us look with new eyes at what the world calls failure, for hidden within every apparent setback is the very step that carries you to your goal. When you assume wealth, when you dare to feel your account already full, the law begins to move. It arranges people, events, and circumstances in ways the surface mind could never design. But because the outer steps often appear crooked, because they sometimes seem to lead backward instead of forward, the unawakened man despairs. He says, "I lost again, I failed again, nothing works for me." And not knowing that this very incident is part of the bridge to fulfillment, he abandons his assumption and returns to the old self. But the awakened man, the man of imagination, smiles at setbacks, knowing that the law never errs. He sees beyond appearances. He knows that even what seems like loss is but a link in the golden chain leading to his desire. Consider the businessman who longed to prosper. He assumed nightly that his bank overflowed, that his clients praised him, that his accounts were fat with gain, and soon after, his largest client withdrew. Outwardly, it was disaster. His friends pitied him, his competitors mocked him, but he persisted. He refused to call it failure. He held to his end. "I am prosperous." And within weeks, a greater client appeared, offering a contract that doubled his income. Later he confessed, "Had I not lost the old account, I would never have been free to take the new one." What seemed like ruin was the bridge. What looked like setback was salvation. So I tell you, when you check your account and see no change, do not despair. When a bill arrives larger than expected, do not murmur. When a payment is delayed, do not call it failure. Say instead, "This too is part of the bridge." For the law, having heard your assumption, must arrange the outer world in perfect sequence. And that sequence may involve the removal of old structures, the closing of old doors, the reshaping of old habits. To the senses, it feels like loss, but to faith, it is progress. Think of Joseph in Scripture. Sold by his brothers, thrown into prison, falsely accused, each step looked like defeat. Yet each was a link in the bridge, carrying him to the throne of Egypt. Had he judged by appearances, he would have called himself cursed. But when the bridge was complete, he saw that every incident was perfect. So it is with you. You may lose today only to gain tomorrow. You may face delay only to be aligned with greater supply. The bridge is not built for your comfort but for your fulfillment. Trust it, walk it, persist in the end, and let every step, however strange, carry you forward. Therefore, learn to see setbacks not as curses, but as signs that the law is at work. Do not panic when things seem to fall apart. Say instead, this is the rearrangement, this is the bridge. For the law cannot lie, and once the seed is planted, the harvest is inevitable. Every incident, whether pleasant or painful, is part of the unfolding path. And in the end, when the desire appears, you will look back and see that nothing was wasted, nothing was random, nothing was lost. All was bridge, transition. But if setbacks are part of the bridge, how then do we hold steady when the outer mocks us? How do we keep faith when the numbers refuse to change? The answer lies in the art of ignoring the 3D world, refusing to bow to facts, and clinging instead to the unseen reality. Here is the test every man must face when he dares to assume a new state: the evidence of the senses, the cold testimony of facts, the loud voice of the so-called 3D world. You open your account after affirming wealth, and the numbers stare back unchanged. You pay a bill and see the balance drop lower, mocking your declarations. You hear the voice of a friend or the whisper of your own mind saying, "Look at reality. Nothing has shifted." You are deceiving yourself. And in that moment, you are tempted to bow to appearances, to abandon your assumption, to confess defeat. But I tell you, the outer world is not reality. It is only the shadow, the echo, the reflection. The only reality is imagination, and faith clings to that unseen cause until the shadow bends. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Do you hear it? Faith is not waiting for facts to change. Faith is declaring the unseen as the real and treating the seen as shadow. To ignore the 3D does not mean to deny its existence, but to deny its authority. You look at the numbers, yes, but you say, you are yesterday's harvest, not today's truth. You acknowledge the bill, yes, but you say, you are a shadow. The real is my supply within. You hear the mocking voice, but you say, you are the echo of the old state. I live in the new. This is the art of ignoring appearances, not closing your eyes to the world, but refusing to let it dictate who you are. Think of the movie screen. The pictures flash before you, dramatic, colorful, convincing. Yet you know they are light, nothing more. The reel in the projector is the cause. To change the film, you do not scratch the screen, you replace the reel. So it is with life. The facts you see are flickering images. The reel is your assumption. Do not waste your energy scratching at the screen, panicking at each scene that plays. Change the reel within, and the outer must obey. I recall a man who came to me despairing because, though he affirmed wealth daily, his account only shrank. He said, "Neville, I cannot deny these numbers. They scream louder than my words." I told him, "Stop bowing to shadows. Numbers are not cause, they are effect. Ignore the 3D by refusing it power. Live from the end and let the world catch up." He obeyed. He ceased staring at his balance in fear. Instead, each time he felt the urge to check, he closed his eyes and felt the joy of seeing it full. Within weeks, unexpected money flowed in. The numbers changed. The shadow obeyed the cause. So I say to you, do not worship facts. Do not let the 3D world be your master. Facts are yesterday's news, hardened states from the past. Your task is not to bow to them, but to persist in the new state until the outer must yield. Ignore the 3D, not with denial, but with authority. Say within yourself, I am wealthy, I am supplied, I am ultra-rich, and rest in the knowing that the outer will soon mirror the inner word. Transition. And when you learn to ignore appearances, something wondrous begins to happen. The law, no longer resisted by your fear, arranges the world with precision. You begin to move naturally, to act without strain, to follow a subtle compass within. This is the guidance of the bridge, the quiet direction that carries you from assumption to fulfillment. Let us now look at the art of following the inner compass. When you dare to assume the end and persist in it, life itself begins to guide you. Not through thunder or lightning, not through desperate struggle, but through a quiet inner compass that seems to direct your steps. You may think you are choosing by accident, that you are stumbling through chance, but every act, every meeting, every so-called coincidence is drawn into harmony with your assumption. The bridge of incidence is not a straight path the conscious mind could design. It is a living current, subtle and sure, carrying you from where you stand to where you have already arrived in imagination. And if you trust it, if you cease forcing and simply follow, you will see how perfectly every step is arranged. Many ask me, but Neville, if I assume wealth, must I take special actions? Must I scheme? Must I plan 100 strategies? And I tell them, no. The action you will take will flow naturally from the state you occupy. A man who feels himself rich will not act as one who is desperate. His choices will be different, his tone will be different, his confidence will be different. And the world, responding to that inner shift, will present opportunities, open doors, arrange meetings that no amount of frantic planning could produce. Your task is not to plot the bridge, but to walk it as it appears, step by step, trusting that the unseen hand of your own imagination is guiding the way. Think of the farmer who plants a seed. He does not pull at the stalk. He does not dig daily to see if the root has grown. He tends the soil, waters gently, and trusts the silent process. And in time the plant rises. So it is with you. Once you have assumed the end, you do not force it. You do not anxiously demand each step. You rest in the knowing and allow the bridge to unfold. The phone call that comes, the idea that strikes, the chance encounter, these are the natural fruits of your assumption. Follow them without strain, and you will find they lead directly to your fulfillment. I recall a student who assumed nightly that her account was overflowing. She did not plan every detail. She did not chase every opportunity. She simply lived in the end and trusted. One day, she felt inspired to attend an event she had no interest in before. At that gathering, she met a contact who introduced her to an opportunity that multiplied her income. To her conscious mind, it was coincidence. But to the awakened mind, it was the bridge. Her inner compass had guided her steps without her forcing a single one. So I tell you, do not confuse action with strain. Do not believe you must claw your way to the prize. The action that arises from assumption is effortless. It feels natural, inevitable, almost obvious. It does not feel like struggle. It feels like flow. And as you follow it, you will see that each step is part of a pattern too vast for the surface mind to design, yet too precise to be chance. Therefore, surrender the need to control the bridge. Trust the compass within. Persist in the end, and when the impulse comes, follow it. When the door opens, walk through it. When the call arrives, answer it. You will see in time that all of it was arranged, that the bridge was perfect, and that your only task was to remain faithful to the end while life itself carried you across. Transition. And when you finally reach the fulfillment of your assumption, when your account overflows and your desire is realized, you will look back and see the bridge clearly. What once seemed random will appear inevitable. What once seemed crooked will shine with perfection. And this is the next revelation, the power of recognizing the bridge in hindsight. It is only when you stand in the fulfillment of your desire that the bridge of incidence shines in its full perfection. While you are crossing it, the steps often seem crooked, the delays unbearable, the losses painful. You wonder, why must I endure this? Why did that happen? Why did the old door close? But when at last you arrive, when your account is full, when wealth flows to you with ease, you look back and see that every step was necessary, every detour was perfect, every delay was love. The bridge that once appeared like chaos reveals itself as divine order. Do you remember Joseph in the scriptures? sold into slavery, cast into prison, falsely accused, forgotten by those he helped each event, appeared cruel and meaningless. But when at last he stood as ruler over Egypt, when famine struck and he alone had abundance, he could look back and say, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." The bridge was hidden in the darkness, but in hindsight it blazed with purpose. So it is with you. The very setback you cursed may be the step that freed you for greater supply. The very loss you mourned may be the door that opened you to fortune. The bridge is never visible in advance, but always perfect in review. I recall a man who desired financial freedom. In imagination, he saw his account abundant, his debts erased, his life secure. Soon after, his position at work was terminated. Outwardly, it was disaster. He came to me in anger, saying, "Neville, how can this be part of the law?" I told him, "Wait, persist in the end, and you will see." In time, he was led to start a venture of his own, and within a year, his income surpassed anything he had earned in employment. Later, he confessed, "Had I not lost that job, I would never have discovered my true wealth." The so-called disaster was the turning point, the bridge revealed in hindsight as the very step to his desire. Do not expect the bridge to unfold in straight lines. Do not imagine that fulfillment will march to the rhythm of your logic. The surface mind cannot see the pattern, but the awakened mind trusts, persists, and later rejoices. When the harvest comes, when the assumption has hardened into fact, you will marvel at the bridge that carried you, and you will know that nothing was wasted, nothing was random, nothing was accidental. All was perfect, because all was born of your assumption. So when you face a setback, remember the end of the story. Remind yourself, one day I will look back and see this as part of the bridge. And when the day of fulfillment arrives, you will laugh at your former doubts, for you will see that the very things you feared were the stepping stones that led you to your desire. Transition. And once you recognize the perfection of the bridge, you will learn the final art to walk it with ease, without strain, without fear, knowing that the law is faithful. Let us now speak of this rest, the peace of walking the bridge with ease. Here is the final art of the bridge, to walk it with ease. For too many, even after they have assumed the end, even after they have declared their wealth and felt their account full in imagination, they stumble through life as though each step were a test, as though each delay were a threat, as though each turn of events were evidence against them. They panic at the smallest change. They grow restless when things do not appear at once. They question whether the law has failed. But hear me well. The bridge is not a trial to torment you. It is the path to carry you. You are not meant to crawl across it in fear. You are meant to walk it in peace, in confidence, in quiet assurance that every step, however it looks, is ordered by your assumption. When you know this, when you are convinced that imagination is the only reality, then you can move through life without strain. You no longer clutch at signs. You no longer tremble at appearances. You see a bill arrive and you say, "This too is part of the bridge." You lose something you thought essential, and you say, "This too is the unfolding of the law." You encounter delay, and you say, "The appointed hour has not yet come, but it will." This is the ease of faith. You rest in the end, and because you rest, you walk the bridge as though it were already accomplished. I recall a woman who assumed nightly that her account was abundant, her purse always full. But during the months that followed, she faced a series of delays and disappointments. At first, she wept and called herself a failure, but then she remembered the law and resolved to walk the bridge in peace. She said to herself each morning, "I live from the end. I am already supplied." She refused to panic. She refused to bow to appearances. She refused to treat the bridge as punishment. And in due time, the outer world delivered. Money came from unexpected sources, debts vanished, her life shifted. Later she said, "Once I stopped fighting and began to rest, everything flowed." That is the power of walking the bridge with ease. Understand this. To strain is to confess separation. To walk in ease is to confess fulfillment. Strain says, I must force it. Ease says, it is already done. Strain tries to push events into place. Ease lets the law arrange them in perfection. Strain doubts. Ease trusts. And the law, impartial as always, reflects the state you occupy. If you strain, you delay. If you rest, you accelerate. For rest is faith, and faith is the substance of things hoped for. So I say to you, as you move through the days and weeks to come, refuse panic, refuse fear, refuse to call anything a setback. Say instead, this is the bridge, and I walk it with peace. Smile at delays, bless the detours, trust the unfolding. And one day, perhaps sooner than you think, you will look up and realize you have arrived. The account will be full, the desire fulfilled, the end made fact. And you will know that you did not crawl there in torment, but walked there in peace. Transition. And now, having crossed the bridge in our understanding, you may ask, how do I know when the harvest is near? How do I recognize that my assumption has truly taken root? The answer lies in the feeling of naturalness, the quiet shift when wealth no longer feels like a dream but like a memory. Let us now turn to this great sign, the naturalness of wealth. Here is the sign that your manifestation is at hand, the feeling of naturalness. At first, when you assume a new state, it feels strange, like a costume you are trying on, like a part you are playing upon a stage. You say, I am wealthy, but the words taste foreign. The state feels unnatural, the senses mock you. And so you return again and again to the end, rehearsing it, imagining it, feeling it, until a subtle shift begins to occur. What once felt like play acting begins to feel possible. What once felt like fantasy begins to feel familiar. And then comes the sacred moment, when it feels so natural that you forget you ever doubted it. That is the sign that the subconscious has accepted the seed. That is the proof that the harvest is near. Do not despise the awkward beginnings. A man who learns to play the violin scratches at first. A child learning to walk stumbles again and again. But persistence transforms struggle into ease. So too with assumption. At first you struggle to feel it real. You push aside doubts. You labor to hold the state. But if you persist, it begins to clothe you like a second skin. You wake in the morning and the thought arises, not as an effort but as a memory. I am supplied. You pay a bill and instead of fear, you feel quiet confidence. I am wealthy. You no longer force the words, for they have become your nature. That is naturalness. I recall a man who longed for marriage. At first, when he declared, I am a husband, it felt absurd. He looked around his empty room and laughed bitterly. But he persisted. Night after night, he imagined walking with his wife, hearing her voice, feeling her hand. At first, it was fantasy. Then it became possibility. Then it became so natural that he forgot to imagine it, he simply lived in it. And when that shift occurred, when the state felt ordinary, the outer world delivered, and he married within months. So it is with your wealth. At first, to say, I am ultra-rich feels forced, because you have lived so long in the state of lack. But persist, and the day will come when it feels obvious, when it feels like memory rather than hope. And when it does, manifestation is near. For the subconscious, having accepted the state as natural, must now reproduce it in the biting outer world. This is why I tell you, do not measure your progress by outer signs. Do not demand proof from the shadows. Measure it by the inward shift. Ask yourself, does this state feel more natural today than yesterday? If the answer is yes, then you are moving swiftly to fulfillment. If the answer is no, persist. For persistence will always bring naturalness, and naturalness always brings manifestation, transition. But here is a subtle danger. Many mistake excitement for naturalness. They think that constant thrill is the proof of faith. But true naturalness is quieter, deeper, steadier. It does not shout, it rests. Let us now look at the difference between excitement and the calm certainty of naturalness. Now let me draw a clear distinction that will free you from much confusion. Many of you mistake excitement for faith. You assume that if you can whip yourself into a frenzy, if you can feel a thrill of ecstasy every time you affirm, then surely you must be close to manifestation. But excitement is not the proof. Excitement is a spark, but it is not the flame. Excitement may rise in the moment, but it soon fades. And if you judge by excitement, you will feel yourself strong today and weak tomorrow, certain tonight and doubting in the morning. But naturalness is steady. Naturalness is quiet. Naturalness does not depend on mood or emotion. It is the calm conviction that the thing already island. Think of a man who has money in his account. Does he leap with joy every morning when he sees his balance? No, he takes it for granted. It is natural. He does not pace the floor in ecstasy, because the bank confirms what he already knows. He simply rests in the fact of abundance. So it will be with you. At first you may feel bursts of excitement as you imagine your wealth, but the true sign is when you feel no need for excitement at all, because wealth feels normal, obvious, natural. That is when the subconscious has accepted it. That is when the harvest is near. I recall a student who came to me saying, "Neville, I do not feel the thrill when I affirm anymore. Perhaps my faith has grown weak." I asked her, "Do you feel at peace when you say the words?" She answered, "Yes, it feels ordinary now, almost too ordinary." And I said, "There is your proof. You are no longer chasing a thrill because you have accepted it as fact. It has become natural." And in time, her life blossomed with supply, for the state had been absorbed by her being. So do not confuse excitement with faith. Do not chase the thrill as though it were the goal. True faith may be accompanied by joy, yes, but it is deeper than joy. It is rest. It is certainty. It is the quiet, knowing that does not demand proof, does not seek signs, does not depend on moods. It is the naturalness of being. And once you reach that place, you no longer worry about whether or not it is working. You no longer question when it will appear. You simply know. And I tell you, when you know, when it is natural, the manifestation is at the door. For the law does not respond to excitement, it responds to conviction. And conviction is felt as quiet, steady naturalness. That is the inner signature of fulfillment, transition. And this brings us directly to the next sign, the subtle but certain mark, that the subconscious has accepted your assumption, when the desire no longer feels like hope but like memory, when it carries within it the calm weight of something already done. Let us now look at this inner signature of fulfillment. Here is the surest proof that your assumption has taken root and that the harvest is drawing near. The shift in feeling when the desire is no longer something you reach for, but something you recall. At first, your wealth feels distant, something you long for, something just beyond your grasp. You affirm, you imagine, you say, "I am wealthy," but deep within you know you are trying to climb into it. But persist, and a subtle transformation begins. The declaration ceases to feel like effort. The scene you replay in imagination ceases to feel like fantasy. One day, you will notice that it feels like memory. The wish fulfilled will no longer feel like something to come, but like something already experienced. That is the inner signature of fulfillment. That is the sign that the subconscious has accepted the seed. Do not underestimate this change, for it is quiet, almost invisible, yet it is the greatest miracle. Just as a woman with child feels the quickening within her womb and knows life has been conceived, so you will feel the quickening within your consciousness. You will sense that what once seemed impossible is now inevitable. You will no longer argue with yourself, no longer seek signs, no longer beg for proof. You will simply know, and when you know, the outer must follow. I recall a man who desired a new home. Night after night he imagined walking its halls, touching its walls, hearing the laughter of his children echo in its rooms. At first he felt like an actor rehearsing a part, forcing the scene upon himself. But after weeks of persistence, something changed. One night, as he imagined, he felt as though he were remembering, not creating. He felt as though the home was already his and that he had lived there for years. Soon after, the opportunity arose, doors opened, and the home was his. The shift from longing to memory was the signal that the manifestation was at hand. So it will be with your wealth. One day you will declare, I am ultra rich. And instead of straining to believe it, you will feel it as obvious, as though you are remembering your truth. When you check your account, the numbers may not yet agree, but within yourself you will no longer care, for you already know the outcome, and in that rest, the numbers must yield. This is why I say, do not look outside for proof, look inside for the shift. Ask yourself, does this desire feel like hope, or does it feel like memory? If it still feels like hope, persist. If it begins to feel like memory, rejoice, for your harvest is near. The subconscious has accepted, and the world is preparing to mirror it. Transition. And once you feel this inner certainty, this memory of fulfillment, the next step is not to press harder, but to release the struggle altogether. You no longer need to fight to hold the state. You simply rest in it. This is the art of resting in the state, the final proof of faith. Here is the final proof that your assumption is secure. You no longer strive to hold it, you simply rest in it. At the beginning, it is natural to push, to force, to grasp. You declare, I am wealthy, yet you repeat it with clenched teeth, fearful that the moment you stop, the state will slip away. But that is not faith. That is willpower dressed in sacred words. True faith does not fight to hold, it rests in possession. It says, it is done, and reclines in the assurance that nothing can alter it. To rest in the state is to move through life as though your desire were already fact. It is not indifference, nor is it laziness. It is the calm confidence of one who knows the outcome. Just as a man who has deposited money in his account does not check the balance every hour in panic, so the man of imagination does not anxiously demand signs. He knows the seed is planted, he knows the harvest is inevitable, and so he rests. He may water it with gentle feeling, he may recall it in the quiet of night, but he does not strain, he does not force, he does not wrestle, he abides. I remember a student who struggled with this truth. She affirmed, I am wealthy. Yet she confessed to me that she repeated it 100 times a day in fear, hoping that the sheer weight of repetition would make it real. I told her, stop exhausting yourself. It is not the number of times you speak it, but the depth of rest with which you accept it. She obeyed. She quieted her frantic affirmations, and instead, each night she simply entered into the feeling of a full account, breathed deeply, and said once with conviction, I am supplied. She let the words sink into silence. She stopped watching for results. And in the weeks that followed, opportunities opened and her wealth grew. It was not the frantic effort, but the restful conviction that bore fruit. Rest is the seal of faith. When you can fall asleep without worry, when you can walk through your day without the gnawing need to check for proof, when you can smile at appearances because you know they are only shadows, then you are resting in the state. And rest itself is the proof that the seed has taken root. For no man rests in a promise unless he knows it is secure. So I say to you, cease your striving. Stop running from sign to sign, from method to method. The law is simple. Assume the end. Feel it real. Rest in it. And the law, faithful and impartial, will bring it forth in its season. You do not need to wrestle the shadow. You need only to abide in the light. Transition. And once you have learned to rest, the final step is to live as though you already were the rich man. Now to let the naturalness of wealth flow into your daily thoughts, words, and actions, until your life itself becomes the expression of your assumption. Now we come to the final proof that the state has been accepted when you begin to live as the rich man now. Not tomorrow, not when the numbers change, not when others congratulate you, but now, in this present hour. To live as the rich man does not mean reckless spending or flaunting wealth you do not yet see. It means to let the assumption of wealth saturate your being until it colors every word you speak, every thought you think, every breath you take. It means that you no longer rise in the morning asking, "Will I have enough?" but declaring in silence, "I have more than enough." It means you no longer bow to fear when the bill arrives, but smile as one who knows that supply is already his. To live as the rich man now is to carry yourself with the quiet dignity of fulfillment, the assurance of one who has already received. At first, it may feel like a role you are playing. You catch yourself pretending, adjusting, trying to match an inner image, but persist. And soon it ceases to feel like pretense. It becomes natural. Your speech changes. Instead of rehearsing lack, you speak casually of abundance. Your tone changes. Instead of a voice tight with worry, it grows calm and steady. Your posture changes. Instead of shrinking before life, you stand as one who belongs, as one who knows. These small shifts, unnoticed by many, are the sure signs that the state of wealth is no longer a wish but your identity. I recall a man who lived for years in constant fear of money. Every purchase was agony, every bill was dread. He began to apply this law, not only in imagination but in the smallest habits of the day. He walked as though his account were full. He carried himself as though every bill was already paid. He no longer sighed at expenses but blessed them, saying within, "I am always supplied." In time, those small acts, born of assumption, reshaped his world. Opportunities came, income increased, debts dissolved. He did not chase wealth, he embodied it. He lived as the rich man, and the outer world conformed. So too must you. Do not wait for the shadow to change before you change yourself. Be the rich man now. Speak as though it were already done. Think as though your account were already overflowing. Act in the quiet confidence of supply, not with reckless spending, but with restful assurance. Treat every encounter, every decision, every step as one who has. For the world is imagination pushed out, and when you live as the rich man within, the outer world must echo it without. This is the art of living in the end. This is the final seal of naturalness. You no longer declare wealth with strain. You no longer struggle to feel it. You simply are. And because you are, the outer must mirror it. Transition. And now, having learned the law of naturalness, we stand ready to lift our eyes higher. For wealth, though glorious, is not the final prize. Money is a shadow, numbers are symbols, but the true treasure is the discovery that the power you have called on is God within you. Let us now open the greatest revelation, the promise beyond the bank account. Now let me take you higher, for if I left you only with the law, you would know how to shape your outer life, but you would miss the greater gift that all these shadows point to. The law is magnificent. It will give you money, it will give you health, it will give you love, it will give you success. It is impartial, it is certain, it never fails. But the law, though powerful, is only the servant. The promise is the master. The law rearranges the outer world. The promise awakens you to the truth of who you are. The law gives you riches that fade. The promise gives you the eternal wealth that can never be taken away. Do not mistake me. I do not despise the law. I have used it. I have proven it. I have seen it change lives in ways no logic could explain. But all these changes are but signs, shadows of a greater reality. For the day will come when you no longer seek things, when you no longer cling to numbers, when you no longer measure yourself by outer balances. The day will come when the law, faithful as ever, delivers to you a gift you did not ask for, the unveiling of the promise. That promise is God revealing himself as you. I remember when the law carried me faithfully across the bridge to many desires. I had proven again and again that imagination creates reality, that assumption hardens into fact. But then something greater broke upon me. I was lifted beyond the shadows into the discovery of the promise. Christ in me, the hope of glory. I saw that all the money, all the health, all the success I had manifested were but symbols, little tokens pointing to the far greater inheritance. The law was the servant leading me to the master. The master was the unveiling of God in me. So let me draw the line for you. The law works on this level to give you wealth. Use it, prove it, enjoy it. But never forget, wealth is not the end. The true end is the promise. The law brings you things. The promise brings you yourself as God. The law answers prayer. The promise reveals the one who prays, and the one who answers are the same. The law is given to all. The promise is given to the chosen, and you are that chosen when the time of unveiling comes. Therefore rejoice in the law, but look beyond it. Do not worship the shadow of money when the substance is God Himself. Use the law until it leads you to the promise. For the promise is life eternal, the unveiling of the I am that spoke through you when you declared, I am wealthy. That I am is the name of God, and when the veil is lifted, you will know it not as a phrase, but as your very being. Transition. And now, having seen the difference between the law and the promise, let us look more closely at wealth itself, not as the goal, but as the shadow of glory. For every dollar, every number in your account, every outer fortune, is pointing to something greater within. Wealth is glorious, but it is not glory itself. The dollars in your hand, the numbers in your account, the gold and possessions that men covet, all of these are but shadows cast by the true light within you. When you assume wealth, the law faithfully brings it forth. You will see your account swell, you will see doors open, you will see opportunities multiply, and you will rejoice, for the law is true. But in time, you will begin to feel a stirring, a whisper in your soul that asks, is this all? Is this the end of the journey? And then you will know the truth. Wealth is not the treasure. It is only the signpost pointing to the treasure. Scripture says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Do you hear it? The things are added. They are not the center. They are not the pearl of great price. They are gifts given freely, signs of a greater reality. The kingdom is the discovery of I am as God within you. The righteousness is the alignment of your inner word with that eternal truth. When you find this kingdom, the things follow naturally. They are added, but they are not the goal. I recall a man who, using the law, brought forth great wealth. He prospered in business, he traveled the world, he tasted every outer success. And yet, after all the riches, he came to me and said, Neville, I have all that I asked for, but still I hunger. That hunger was the call of the promise. The money had served its purpose. It had proven the law. But it had also revealed its own emptiness when sought as the end. For wealth is a shadow. It satisfies the body for a time, but it cannot fill the soul. Only the discovery of God within can do that. So do not despise wealth, but do not worship it either. Rejoice in it as a sign, but look beyond it to the source. Each time your account grows, let it remind you of the power within you. Each time money flows, let it point you to the truth that imagination creates reality. Each outer blessing is a finger pointing to the greater glory, the unveiling of Christ in you. For when the promise is revealed, you will see that the true treasure is not in the bank, but in your being. Therefore, use wealth as you would use a mirror. Do not cling to the reflection, but trace it back to the light that casts it. Enjoy the abundance, but remember it is shadow. The glory is within. And when you awaken to that glory, you will find that wealth was never your master, but your servant. A humble sign of the majesty of your own I am. Transition. And once you see wealth as shadow, you are ready to face the eternal truth itself, that the real fortune, the everlasting treasure, is the discovery of the eternal I am. Let us now lift our eyes to that revelation. Now we arrive at the mystery that stands above all shadows, the treasure that no thief can steal and no moth can corrupt, the eternal I am. For every fortune you build in the outer world will one day fade. Numbers rise and fall, markets shift, gold is spent, possessions perish, bodies grow old. Even the grandest wealth, if clung to as substance, slips away like sand through the fingers. But there is one treasure that cannot fade, one inheritance that cannot diminish, one wealth that outlasts the world itself, the discovery of your true being as I am. When Moses asked the voice in the burning bush, "What is your name?" the answer came, "I am that I am. Not I was, not I will be, but I am." That is the eternal presence, the self-existent one, the source of all creation. And every time you speak the words I am, you are invoking that sacred name. You may attach to it broke, unlucky, poor, and the law will faithfully bring it to pass. Or you may attach to it rich, supplied, secure, and the law will likewise deliver. But whether in ignorance or in wisdom, the name is always spoken. The question is not whether you use it, but how. This is why I tell you, the true treasure is not the money itself, but the awakening to the power of the name. To discover that every I am you have ever uttered has shaped your world, is to discover God at work in you, and to awaken fully, to know that I am is God Himself declaring through you, is the promise fulfilled. That is the pearl of great price. That is the kingdom hidden in the field. That is the eternal wealth which makes all outer riches seem like shadows by comparison. I remember the moment when this truth dawned upon me. I had proven the law again and again. I had manifested journeys, wealth, success, opportunity. But then, beyond all expectation, I was lifted into the promise, and I saw the truth. The power I had used to change my world was not a tool, but God Himself. The I am that I spoke so casually was the eternal presence that created heaven and earth. And in that moment, I knew myself to be one with Him. No outer wealth could equal that revelation. For here was a fortune beyond time, a treasure beyond measure, an inheritance eternal. So I say to you, do not stop at the shadow. Use the law, yes. Prove it, yes. Fill your account, pay your bills, enjoy abundance. But never forget, these are but signs of the greater truth, that you are the I am declaring itself into form. And one day, when the veil is lifted, you will see with your own eyes that you are the source, you are the light, you are the eternal presence clothed in flesh. That is the true fortune. That is the promise. Transition. And once you awaken to this truth, something changes forever. You no longer ask for supply, for you know yourself to be supply. You no longer beg for riches, for you know yourself as the source of riches. Let us now look at this final revelation, becoming the source itself. Here we come to the final revelation, to become the source itself. For as long as you imagine wealth as something apart from you, as long as you treat supply as something that must be summoned from outside, you are still playing the part of the beggar. You may clothe the beggar in fine garments. You may fill his pockets with coins. But so long as he believes the coins are separate from himself, he remains in bondage. But the day you awaken to the truth that you are not drawing wealth to yourself, but declaring it from yourself, you cease to be the beggar and stand revealed as the giver, the source, the fountain from which all supply flows. Do you not remember the words, "I am the vine, ye are the branches"? The vine does not look outside itself for sap, for nourishment, for life. The sap is within, and the branches bear fruit only because the vine is their source. So it is with you. You are not a branch broken and begging for water. You are the vine itself, the root of all supply. Every dollar, every opportunity, every blessing that appears in your world flows from the life within you. And once you see this, once you accept it, You will never again beg or chase or fear. You will declare, and it will be. I recall a man who for years prayed as though God were far away, as though wealth were withheld and he had to earn it through toil and tears. But when he awoke to the truth that the I am within him was the source, his prayer changed. He no longer begged. He no longer pleaded. He simply declared, I am supplied. I am abundance. I am wealth. And his world transformed. Opportunities that had long been closed burst open. People who had ignored him now sought him out. Money flowed, not as though granted from outside, but as though drawn from a well within. He had become the source, and the world simply mirrored it. So I say to you, cease asking, cease waiting, cease imagining supply as something far off. Begin now to identify yourself with it. Say not, I will be wealthy. Say, I am wealth. Say not, I will be supplied. Say, I am supply. Say not, I will be rich. Say, I am richness itself. For when you attach the name of God I am to anything, you clothe yourself in it, and the world must obey. This is the promise, that you will one day know yourself not as the receiver but as the giver, not as the seeker but as the source. When that day dawns, fear ends. You will no longer tremble at numbers, no longer bow to appearances, no longer cry out for provision. You will rest in the eternal knowing, all that I need, I am. And from that rest, the outer will overflow. For the world cannot help but mirror the identity you have embraced. So live now as the source. Speak as the source. Walk as the source. And you will see that abundance flows, not as something added from outside, but as something revealed from within. For the fountain of wealth has always been your own. I am. Transition. And now, having lifted our eyes beyond the law into the promise, having seen that wealth is shadow and the I am is the eternal substance, let us draw this journey to its close. For you have not only learned how to act as if your account were full, you have discovered that you are the fullness itself. And so, my friends, we have walked together from the first whisper of assumption to the highest unveiling of promise. You began by hearing me say, act as if your account is already full, and it must overflow. You have seen how the numbers that once mocked you are not truth, but shadows, reflections of your past assumptions. You have learned that the true account, the real bank, is within you, and that every word of I am is a deposit or a withdrawal. You have heard how inner speech writes the outer balance, how living from the end draws the harvest, how faith rests while willpower strains. You have seen how doubt is only shadow, how revision redeems the past, how the appointed hour cannot fail. You have walked the bridge with me, learned to ignore the 3D, to trust the inner compass, to see perfection in hindsight, and to walk the path with ease. You have discovered that naturalness is the true sign, that when wealth feels like memory instead of hope, the manifestation is near. And at last, you have lifted your eyes beyond money itself, to see that wealth is but shadow, and the eternal treasure is the discovery of I am as God within. So let this be your seal. Wealth is not outside you, it is within you. You do not wait for numbers to rise, you do not beg for deposits to appear. You declare within, I am wealthy, I am supplied, I am ultra-rich. You live as the rich man now, not in reckless show, but in quiet dignity, in the certainty of being. You refuse to bow to appearances. You rest in the end. You trust the appointed hour, and you know that all the world must obey, for imagination creates reality. But I would fail you if I left you only with the law. For the law, though perfect, is servant to the greater promise. The true prize is not the overflowing account, but the discovery of the one who fills it. The true treasure is not gold or silver, but the unveiling of God in you. One day, as surely as you now breathe, the veil will lift, and you will see yourself as the eternal I am, the source of all supply, the vine of which every branch partakes. And in that day you will know that you are not merely the one who says, I am rich. You are richness itself. You are the fountain, you are the giver, you are the source. So tonight, as you close your eyes, do not fall asleep to numbers, do not drift into fear. Fall asleep in the end. Feel your account already full. Feel the joy of supply. Feel the relief of abundance. Whisper in the silence, I am ultra rich. I am supplied. I am chosen. My account is full. Say it once with conviction, and then rest, for the word is spoken and the harvest is sure. And when you wake, walk as though it were already so. Speak as though you had already received. Think as though your account already testified. Live as the rich man now, and watch, as surely as dawn follows night, the outer world will bow to your assumption. But if you would go further, if you would discover not only how to fill your account, but how to awaken the eternal wealth of God within, then come with me to the next lesson. For there I will show you the single imaginal act that I myself have used, the act so simple and so strange that most overlook it, yet within it is hidden the key to every desire, the seed of every fortune, the doorway to the promise itself. For this is the